This is part 2 of Has My Ministry Passed the Sell-by Date? I've noticed with interest that I love reading biographies, and in reading the biographies of people like John Wesley, C.T. Studd, William Booth, Hudson Taylor, how God raises up one person with a vision, and that person takes that vision, runs with it, and it develops into a worldwide ministry and becomes a powerful tool in the hands of God. If you think of the Methodist Church, the Salvation Army, just to name a few. So what happens then when the leader dies, when the person who had the original vision dies? Very often the momentum of the ministry carries on for another 1 or 2 decades. Then it starts waning, it starts getting less effective, less powerful. The basic foundation of the ministry often changes. That which the original leader received from the Lord as the mandate starts getting changed later on, and it loses its effectiveness, it loses its power. I believe that for every generation, God raises up a new person for that generation. That doesn't mean that, for instance, the leaders' children can't carry on with that. If you look at David and Solomon, but I do not believe that ministry will be exactly the same, because it's not relevant for the next generation. And if you look at David and Solomon, their ministries were completely different. And so I think it's the responsibility of each new generation, for the leaders of that generation, to take hold of God and seek His face and say, God, what do you want for this generation? What are your purposes for this generation? But we are often like supermarket Christians. We run to the bargain counter because we don't want to pay full price. We see someone else who has a successful ministry, and we don't want to pay the price of fasting and praying and copy them and say, well, if it works for them, it has to work for me. I believe God has something individual for each one of us, for my life. Even if I don't have a big ministry, if I don't have a big organization or anything like that, for my life, God has a specific purpose. And I pray that we will be filled with the knowledge of God's will. And the last thing I want to say is, do not neglect to pass on the baton of the power of the Holy Spirit. A lot of organizations lose their power because they neglect to pass the baton on of the power of the Holy Spirit to the next generation, and it becomes weaker and weaker. In Acts, the apostles were filled with power and the Holy Spirit continuously. Thank you.